Mickey, how surprised were you by Tyron's announcement? And, have you talked to him about it?
Yeah, we had a little advance notice on that, so it wasn't like we were surprised today. I'm a little surprised, but we had some advance notice, and just have so much respect for Tyron and what he's accomplished. And I mean, he's a legendary Louisiana player, legendary NFL player. Really appreciate his time with us. He was fantastic, and I don't have enough good things to say about him. I have a lot of good things to say about him. What a great career, and just wish him all the best.
What did he just have to make to the locker room the time that you did have him?
Yeah, I just think he's one of those guys that just commands respect by his actions and his deeds. He's got great message. He's very thoughtful, intelligent, super smart player. About all the right things, on the football field, and his experiences in life, and he was just fantastic.
Was there advance notice? Do you mean more than when you say you had advance notice, did you mean more than a couple of days? And might you have done?
No, I think this just came out in the last few days. Right.
Might you have done things differently in the off season?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Was there an effort maybe to try to talk him into?
No, I wouldn't do that to especially a player of his experience, and he understands himself better than anyone, and so I wouldn't do that.
Well, you guys look to have someone there, or is it more on maybe what you have and those guys stepping up or now you signed, or?
Yeah, we'll look, and if there's somebody available that can help us, we'll do that certainly.
Mickey, how are you feeling about camp? The
Yeah.
head coach,
Right.
battle. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, man, there's an excitement about having, new coaching staff and a lot of changes. We have the quarterback battle that we're going to be observing during this training camp. I think that's exciting to have. There's a lot of newness about that, and I'm really excited about how the offseason went. Excited about Kellen and his staff, and I'm just anxious to get going and see how it all unfolds.
When you combine what just happened with Tyron, unexpected Derek Carr development earlier this offseason, I know you have never willingly wanted to have any sort of rebuild, or you don't like that word, but is there something about once you realize that this, is a younger team, could take a little while? I mean, does that shift at all? How aggressively you want to try to be all in to win?
Yeah, I think Derek not playing, that gives us a chance to reset in terms of some of the financial repercussions that we have, and but I think we're always in the mode of we're trying to win every game. We're not. I don't look at it as a rebuild, even though you might say, we got a lot of developing positions of development, I should say. A lot of young players that we want to develop, and I'm excited about that. But at the same time, look, there's always an opportunity for things to fall in place and be successful. We're going to try to win every game.
What gives you confidence that this roster is constructed heading into training camp can really compete for the NFC South?
Yeah, I think we're going to find out. We're going to find out where we're at. I know we have a lot of talent on the team, but we have a lot of young talent that's developing, and I think we have a coaching staff that can develop young players and put guys in the position to be successful. I do think we've got a nice mix of veteran players that can still play at a high level, and so I'm just anxious to see how it all unfolds.
If rebuild's not right, you still see this year as kind of like a transition?
Well, clearly it's a transition because we've got to we're going to have a change at quarterback, and that's obviously the most important position on the field for any team.
What were you looking for out of that battle? How were you trying to measure the day-to-day and all that?
I think there's so many variables that it's kind of hard to just sit here and dictate them. I thought we saw a lot of good things during the off season, and yet we're not playing tackle football in the off season. So I think these, this training camp period, particularly the preseason games, are going to be really important in determining who the starter is.
What input do you have in that, or will you expect to have in that? Have you and Kellen sort of worked out, sort of how the relationship's going to play?
Yeah, I think that's ongoing, but it's been really super positive so far. And look, who becomes the starter, who's playing, that's a coaching decision. It's always been a coaching decision. But we're going to have our input. We're going to have, Kellen's really good about asking a lot of guys in the building their thoughts, and he's just collecting information, not just from his staff, but from the personnel staff, from myself, and so he can make the best decision in determining who's actually going to end up playing.
Mickey, you guys haven't really done this ever that I can recall in a long time with the young quarterbacks. Why the decision not to bring in the veteran and let the young guys get all the snaps?
No, I think number one, I think we like the guys that we have. There's only so many reps available, and look, one of the reasons that you bring in a veteran guy behind is just that experience level, and yet we've got Kellen, we've got Scott Tolzien, we've got Doug, all have been experienced. All our experienced NFL quarterbacks, and so we have some of that built into our staff that a lot of staffs don't necessarily have. So, yeah.
And would you treat that different? I mean, is the whole reset question we were discussing earlier a little different? If this was a team that was maybe built differently, would you need the safety net of someone who could step in right away and be a proven starter?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't really thought of it in terms of that. I just thought about it in terms of, hey, we like these guys. We know they're young. We know they're inexperienced, but let's develop what we have and go from there.
Mickey, given that they are both younger quarterbacks, is there any?
There's three of them.
Is there any is there any urgency or benefit of maybe declaring one sooner than later so that you can kind of get all in behind them and tailor it forward?
No, I think the most important thing here is not speed; it's accuracy, and so we're going to give these guys a chance to battle it out, and we'll go from there, and however long that takes.
How does the franchise go about supporting a young quarterback? Are there things you have to do differently, but because you've been with you so long?
Yeah, I think that's a tough question to answer because you're always wanting to, have a good defense and have a good running game and have a good O-line, and those are the things that, any quarterback can benefit from. I think for the younger quarterback, part of that is just making sure you're going through all the steps, that you don't get too complicated, you don't put too much on the plate early. So there's some things that certainly you do for younger quarterbacks that you wouldn't do for the veteran guy. But remember this, this staff and this offense and the schemes that we're going to be doing, that's new to everyone here. That's what happens when you have a new staff. So we're all learning together.
I know it took a little longer, but how important was it to get Tyler's deal done on time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was important. I was never worried that it wasn't going to get done on time, but look, there was some nuance in that second round, and it's getting worked out, and I'll be surprised if all or at least the majority of second rounders aren't signed before training camp starts for all of our teams.
Did the Houston-Cleveland situation catch you by, not surprise, or had you kind of seen this inching its way up over the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a little bit of a surprise. Obviously, it was. Otherwise, all the guys would have been signed. So, but that's their decision. So we just react to where the round is and as a whole. But it's all fine. It worked out.
Is there any limitation or restrictions with Chris Olave? I mean, it's the first time he's had contact.
Yeah. No, he's full go.
Do you see the guarantees in the second round as a trend over the next few years? Like, do you anticipate within 5 years or so, all the second round picks will be fully guaranteed?
That's the trend. That's where it's going, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, that's where it's going.
How about Taysom and Foster, those guys?
Yeah, they're going to start out on PUP, but look, that's been all positive.
Mickey, how would you describe Kellen Moore's personality? We had a bunch of videos
Yeah.
of OTAs and minicamp, which just him sort of laughing and smiling. I'm
Yeah.
talking about in the middle of practice. How would you describe sort of who he is and how he handles the job?
Yeah, that's a good question. I hadn't thought of it in terms of describing it. But look, he's look, what comes across, he just loves football, right? He loves the process. He loves football, loves the game, loves everything about it. And I think one of his strengths is that he makes it fun. He makes the process fun. And I don't think he takes himself too seriously, but he's super smart. He's got a great work ethic. He's about being collaborative, and so he's about all the right things, for sure.
When you said he's asking a lot of people their opinions, is that something that maybe hasn't always been the case? And I'm not saying that as criticism,
No.
but hasn't always been the case with other guys?
No, I think the coaches we've had have all been very collaborative and want, they want other opinions. So I wouldn't say that it's different. Maybe the approach is different, but we've been fortunate in that regard.
Foster and Taysom the only ones you expected to start on PUP?
Yes.
Mickey, you get different players, different positions who have been here in years past, last year now, have all said there's more energy in the building, more energy. Is there anything you've seen different from when they say energy, there's more excitement? Anything you've seen different?
Yeah, I think there's always energy when you have a new staff and things are new and things are different. So I think that just comes with having a new staff. I would have said the same thing. Dennis Allen's first year, I certainly would say the same thing. Back when in 06, when in Sean's first year, I think the newness brings some of that. And I think we have a staff that's we have the entire staff. It feels like there are really a lot of high energy guys that want to make the process fun for the players, and it's been really good.
What kind of difference do you expect or over the course of the season? How does that fun and excitement kind of pay off as the year goes along, gets tougher?
Yeah, I think that it's the themes of if it's fun and you're together, it's good chemistry and you trust each other, you play for each other. It's all all those themes that successful teams talk about after the fact. That doesn't just come naturally. You have to work at that, and so that's what you do. You make it fun, you make it enjoyable, you do it together. It doesn't mean it's easy, but you're doing it in a way that builds team chemistry.
Do you feel, all coaches believe in team building, right?
Yeah.
But where would you say Kellen is on that list? It feels like it's more of a priority.
I think
It's a new team.
yeah.
I don't know.
I think anytime, again, we get right back to new staff and you're trying to set a culture, your vision for the culture. And so, part of that is how do you build team chemistry? You do it through shared experiences, right? And you want those shared experiences to be positive. And I think there's a particular emphasis on that with Kellen. And I think all coaches do that, but they may approach it a little differently.
I kind of have a long-winded question, I apologize. So you've been here forever.
Thank you.
The expectations are, the expectations obviously after a championship, and you all won 15 years ago, were championship. That's
Yeah.
the championship or bust. You had a veteran team with a coach that had been here a long time, the expectations for playoffs. Not that you don't want to have expectations, because teams like Houston a couple of years ago with C.J. Stroud made the playoffs, what Washington did last year. But do you almost, kind of following on what Mike asked, temper expectations knowing the inexperience that you had? Is it fair or unfair to ask that?
Yeah, I think most of the time the expectations come from outside the building. I think inside the building, you always have this expectation of being the best team you can be. And the ceiling or the floor for that is really, that's stuff that you guys and the media and fans talk about more so than what we talk about. We still have the same philosophies, the same goals inside the building. You know, our goal is to win the NFC South, work towards a Super Bowl. I don't think that teams really think about expectations. They think about goals, and how do we get there? So I don't know that I'm answering that question, but you're asking a question about expectations, and yet I'm telling you that every team, I don't think expectations is the right word inside the building. I think it's more about having goals and aspirations.
Is there ever a point, like from your chair though, when you're looking at the future and being in a reset, so to speak, where you look at, hey, next year, maybe embracing the rebuild of it, and all right, is there a benefit of winning 6 games, or is it better for us to maybe try to win them all, but set it up so that maybe it's 4 and we're picking?
Yeah, I don't believe in that. I believe you go in doing everything you can to be successful, to win every game. And then you deal with the consequences of the season afterwards. Yet, look, I also recognize we've got a young team here. We've got a lot of developmental pieces, and the most important position in the building is inexperience, and so that's the reality of it. And so we have to be, we can't put our head in the closet and not recognize that. We do recognize that, and so we have to be particularly good in a lot of other areas. And develop the quarterback.
That said, like the expectations, like you see lists this time of year, like ESPN the other day had like, the roster is like the last ranked roster.
Yeah.
Odds are the number 1 pick. You guys are different. Obviously, I don't think you believe that. What do you think like the disconnect is?
Yeah, I don't pay attention to that. That's other people, most of them unqualified, making those comments.
This might be another one of those things that exists really outside for you than inside. But the idea of team identity, so having a young team and a young roster and things like that, does that make it more challenging to build a team identity? And if not, like, where do you see sort of as a team identity?
No, I think that's what training camp and this whole off season and training camp and the season. That's what it's for. It's not something that happens overnight. I mean. Look what Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes did in Detroit. That didn't happen overnight. It happened over the span of three years. And so, inside the league, we recognize that doesn't always happen overnight. Occasionally it does happen within the span of a short time, but most of the time it takes a while to build that.
Do you embrace that? Do you embrace the fact that, you know what, if we're being realistic, this is not a 1-year reset. That was the word you used before.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be 2 or 3 years. Like, are you okay with saying that, with like embracing that this is not a 1-year reset? It's going to take a couple of years to get us where we want to be.
I think that gets back to aspirations versus expectations, right? The expectations out there is that it's going to take a long time, but our goals are still the same. Our goals are to win every game and to win the NFC South, and that's what we're working towards. So what you're asking is kind of this intangible thing that you guys think about, but I don't know that we think about it in those terms.
When you mentioned having to be good in other areas, with obviously experience at quarterback, now with obviously Tyron's retirement right before the start of training camp, how do you feel about the depth of the secondary with that?
Yeah, I think part of that is, hey, are the younger guys that we have developing? How quickly are they going to develop? I think we have the makings of a really good offensive line, for example. We've put a lot of resources there, but there's some development that needs to take place. We have young offensive tackles, and we have a great center, and Trevor's moving to guard. So we've got some moving pieces there, but I think we believe that we've got a lot of talent there, and this could be a really, really good offensive line and can be a strength of our team. How long that takes, we'll see. There's a lot of elements on defense that we feel the same way about. So that's what training camp's all about, to see how quickly that comes together, and how quickly that gels. That'll determine how successful we are.
Mickey,
Yeah,
you
I understand it's
mentioned
probably
that.
part of the process every year, but just considering all the injuries we went through last year,
Yeah.
how much of a reset did you guys take this offseason, just kind of evaluating what you're doing and how you're doing it and trying to
Yeah.
course correct it? I mean, obviously, Ted Rapp is a big part of that.
Yeah, he's a huge part of that, and that's been really one of the really, bright spots, I think, of this off season, is to see, how we've attacked that issue, and how that's come together, and we'll see the results, as we go forward. We'll see how effective that is. We're going to have injuries, we know that, but hopefully we can minimize some of the things that we've had in the past, and particularly in the soft tissue area.
Can you get into like what that means, like what sort of effort kind of went into that?
Yeah, look, it's a lot of analytical information. It's a lot of load management, a lot of assessment of each individual player. So it's really a lot of things, a lot of variables. But so far, it's been really, really positive, and he's had a good history of effective results in the places that he's been.
You've got a change in director of rehabilitation as well this offseason. Can you tell us a little bit about what stood out to you about Garrett and the hiring?
Yeah, that came about because Jonathan, who we loved, got an opportunity to basically run his own program, and so went through a number of candidates and came up with what we think was the best guy, and he's been fantastic so far.
You mentioned Taysom Hill will start on the PUP list, but all conversations with him, he's definitely going to play this year. He's definitely going to be medically on scheduled on time to play by week 1 and all that.
Well, I don't know about the timing, but everything's been really positive for both he and Foster.
Jimmy Graham obviously, announced his retirement. I guess, what does he mean to you in this organization?
Jimmy's fantastic, and one of the really great things in the last few years was him coming back and playing for us another year, and man, I just appreciate him so much, and I'm excited that he wanted to retire as a Saint. Excited about what the future holds for him. He's such a talented guy, not just in football, but in all walks of life. And I think, what did he row across the Arctic Ocean or something crazy? Not your typical off-season activities, but what a fantastic player and a fantastic guy he is. So, looking forward to seeing him again soon.
Just to clarify on Jimmy, has he signed anything yet with you guys?
Well, you don't need to do that. Look, his last team was the Saints, and he'll be in the Saints Hall of Fame and on the Ring of Honor at some point, and all those things that come with being the great player that he was.
Mickey, we talked about how he's a young team, and we've also got the makeup with some older guys.
Yeah.
Tyron and Derek both retiring this offseason. How important is it for you all, and maybe you've already identified some younger players that can step into that leadership role and be the next Mario Davis and Tyron?
Yeah, I think that we've got some guys, and I'm not going to name them individually, but we've got some young players that have those kind of traits, and they've got great role models like Cam and DeMario, and there's some others as well. That can step into those roles when those guys are ready to step out of it. But I think that gets back to when we go through the process of bringing players in, going through the character, going through trying to, get guys that were captains in college and were leaders on their team, and making sure that we had a lot of those guys that can eventually fill that role. So I feel good about that in terms of the future, and
Do you talk to the team tomorrow? Do you personally?
No,
talk?
I don't.
Do you have any? Is there any point during camp that you do the schedule, or it just happens?
No, it happens in the off season occasionally, and I pick and choose my spots.
What was your approach to the defensive line this offseason? You brought back Chase.
Yep.
Acquired. Guys did a lot of things at that position. What was kind of the philosophy?
Yeah, I think we're scheme change. Getting guys that fit what Brandon wants to do with the defense, and identifying the traits that the guys that we have and how they're going to fit. That was important. And then availability too is important. What's available in terms of free agents. What can we get in the draft, and so that's what dictates it. Trying to create depth.
What are your expectations going into the first day of training camp? Maybe not expectations, aspirations.
Good get. That's a good catch. I think just having a great camp, seeing the young players develop, seeing how our guys adapt to, the new coaching staff and the schemes that they want to, establish with our team. That's going to be important. And look, that process has already happened in large part in the off season. But look, I'm anxious to get started and see where guys are.
You've been part of seasons that, where the aspirations have been exceeded.
Now everybody's using aspirations.
You're never going to hear expectations
You're
again.
not going to take the bait on expectations.
Yeah.
But, 2000, 2006, where
Yeah.
the seasons were, everyone thought you were rebuilding on the Spurs. What does it take in those types of seasons to, surpass expectations or meet those level of aspirations that you have?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think you get back to chemistry. Do the guys, do you feel like a group comes together with new players, new staff? Do they, immediately buy in? Do you have great chemistry? Are they playing for the right reasons? All those things that, you catch lightning in a bottle sometimes. We did that in 2006, right? And teams can do that. So that all happens during the course of the off season and training camp. And then you have to stay healthy too. Listen, health in our league is a really important factor, because if you can't keep your best players on the field, then your chances of being successful quickly diminish.
Do you talk to them about that? Or do you just, that's another chapter, that's another time in another place? Or do you talk to Kellen and these coaches about, in 2006, catching lightning? I remember the preseason, and then all of a sudden the regular season started. And
Right.
It was a much different type of situation.
I think that all these guys, they're experienced. They've been on teams or been part of teams that have done that, and they've been part of teams that had higher aspirations and went the other direction. So we've all been part of those teams, and you just recognize that what happens, or that what can happen. And so, we haven't had discussions about that specifically, no.
What about, the older guys who are still on the roster,
Mhm.
Mario, Cam? What do you think what do you think they can still contribute?
Yeah, look, I think I would say the same thing to what happens with those players is, man, we want them to play as long as they can. And both those guys have demonstrated that they can still play. And so that's what we're looking to see it. What did Sean used to say? I don't have to see it every day, but I still got to see it in training camp. And so that's the case for every veteran player, with every team, is that, hey, you want to make sure that they can still play at a high level. And you want to set them up for that success too. So that's what we'll be looking to do. What else?
Design the gold uniforms.
Say that again?
Do you have any gold uniforms?
Let me reserve my comments on the gold uniforms till I see them on our players.
Is there something exciting about that though?
Yeah, there is. I mean, I think that there's, I think there is, something different. But I love our traditional uniforms so much that I like all of it. Every once in a while, there's something that we'll see, and don't like that, but for the most part, I like all of it. All right.